Hi guys. Hey, thanks for coming back and participating on my 30-day juice challenge. We're at the finale, and what I want to do is talk about stress, caregivers, and our health. What started this whole process was severe intermittent stomach pain. It was probably happening once a month, so it wasn't like a big deal. And the goal was to eliminate the stomach pain. And I pretty much believe that stress was the big factor and was what was causing this. So let's take a minute and talk about caregivers and stress. My husband and I, we ended up being caregivers for about 3 years, and there's a couple types of caregivers out there. In general, there's going to be caregivers for children and adolescents, and the big bonus about children and adolescents is every day they get more and more independent. Now, it doesn't mean that this isn't a stressful situation, and usually if you're a caregiver for children, it's a lot of times because of something that has gone on with your children, and you're now a caregiver for your grandchildren. And whatever's going on with your children can be super stressful, but the big difference with children and adolescents is in each day they get more and more independent. There's another type of caregiver that we're seeing a lot of today, and that's with the aging and the terminally ill. And the big deal with aging and terminally ill is that every day they lose more and more of their independence, and every day you end up picking up more and more responsibilities. So here's some interesting statistics. There's a 1999 research project that's cited quite often. They found in 1999 that caregivers had a 63% higher mortality rate than non-caregivers. Here's another one. In 2002, Stanford did a study. 40% of caregivers for Alzheimer's patients die before the patient does. That's amazing. But what those two studies help to do is highlight how incredibly stressful being a caregiver is, whether it's for children or whether it's for aging or terminally ill. It's a really, really stressful job. And you can find a ton of research out there on how stressful it is for individuals. So for myself, I was caregiver for an aging parent and a terminally ill sister. And if we look at that, last year my sister passed in March, and then my mom passed in April. And because we couldn't stop there, the horse that I bred and raised for 18 years, I had to put down in June. Couldn't stop there. In July, I was rear-ended, and my insurance company, State Farm, denied the medical and damage payments. It's taken me 9 months of documentation, reporting them to the insurance commission, and then taking them to court in order to get reimbursed for an accident that I wasn't even at fault in. And it couldn't stop there. No, no, my business was doing great, but I was having a lot of issues finding administrative staff for the insurance billing, and that was impacting cash flows. So I had normal responsibilities, which included running and managing a business, trying to take care of this accident, the car accident, and I really shouldn't have had to put in the effort that I did, but I also had to pay my bills. Those were my normal responsibilities. On top of that, I had daily caregiving, one of the most stressful jobs we can have today. I also had the financial and legal implications of end of life. I had to deal with end of life. I had to let them go. I had the management of 2 sick horses. I had the administrative nightmare of my auto insurance company, State Farm. And in the first month after this accident, I logged 47 hours of follow-up and documentation for that company. And my business I was no longer just a provider. I was also being forced to micromanage resources, and I was also forced to try and manage all the insurance billing issues for the business, and I was completely failing at that. You know, there had been a lot of changes to the insurance law with this huge fight going on with the Affordable Care Act. It's really changed insurance, and as an individual, you've probably noticed that you have to do a lot more management with your insurance because you have no idea what they're covering. But for practitioners, they're not only running into that problem. Last year, it was interesting. I had significantly more random denials that took hours and hours of follow-up and months of follow-up. And then I also had a boatload of misquotes. And if the insurance company misquotes you, it used to be they took responsibility for it. Now they're like, oh, that's too bad for you. So that would fall back on either me or the patient. I had a lot of delayed payments. It was surprising how many insurance companies were delaying payments. And then they started creating administrative nightmares for us. They started doing a lot of records requests. And I think I had 6 audits in the last 2 months of 2018. So what this meant for me was I was under an insane amount of stress. Here's what Chinese medicine sees disease as. They see the progression of disease as starting in the Tao with the spark of life, and this is when life is first created. So it's when you get the egg and the sperm, and that spark of life talks about genetics. So the spark of life is your genetic profile that you bring into this world. And from there, from your genetics, disease moves to the spirit. And here in the West and in the 21st century, we have a totally different concept of spirit than they did back in ancient China. So ancient China did not have the religious direction that we have today. So spirit meant something totally different. For them, spirit meant your internal balance with your life and the life around you. And so when you're out of balance, your emotions change, and disease moves from the spirit to the emotions. The first clue that your balance is upset is changes in your emotion. Now, granted, everybody's going to be sad. Everybody's going to be happy. Everybody's going to be angry, frustrated, worried, fearful. Everybody has all these emotions. It's when these emotions start to run amok and start to consume more and more of our time that they are out of balance. And we know about this because how much depression do we have out there today? How much anxiety do we have out there today? That is all about emotions being out of balance. And after the emotions are out of balance, the next step for disease is a mental manifestation. And this will be verbally in our communication. You know, you notice if you're anxious, your communication's a little bit different. You're a little bit tense. You're not really relaxed. You might be a little bit fearful, a little bit jaded. So you communicate differently than if you were not anxious. And you might you'll act differently because the emotions are driving you to think differently about a situation. And what you're thinking probably isn't even really what's happening. So now your disease has manifested itself through your mental actions, either verbally or through directing your physical actions. And then the last manifestation is physical expression of being out of balance. And let's look at anxiety again. What's one of the most common physical expressions that people have? Inability to sleep or upset stomach. These are very, very common, or nervous stomach would be another one. These are common physical manifestations of being out of balance. But in order to get there, you have to start with your genetics. You have to start getting out of balance with yourself. Your emotions need to start going haywire in one direction. Then you have mental manifestations, and then there's a physical. So that is how disease is looked at in Chinese medicine. And it makes sense, right? So with chronic disease, the CDC identifies that pretty simply as anything that lasts longer than a year. So for stress, that means we all have chronic stress. I'm always amazed at how incredibly stressed out we are as a nation. And even when I look at the college students that are coming in, it really, really bums me out to see how incredibly stressed out they are in college. So one of the things that's true about chronic disease is that it can be managed. And almost any almost any website you look at is going to talk about lifestyle changes. Like that's the big key to changing your chronic disease. But lifestyle changes are going to be your food choices, physical activity, don't smoke, don't drink. Those are the 4 key ones. If you pull up any website that's talking about how you can change your chronic disease, they're going to pick those 4 lifestyle changes. And then there's also things like emotional support, because when you're anxious, when you're fearful, when you're sad, you do need emotional support. And it could be support groups. It could be massage, acupuncture, counseling, friends. It could be just taking time off. And there's also assistance from others, accepting help when we need it. One of the neat things about lifestyle, 100% able to get back to normal functioning. So when we're dealing with chronic disease and we're still managing it with lifestyle changes, we've got a great opportunity to get back to 100% functioning. Then there's a second side of managing chronic disease, and that's intervention. And this next list is kind of going in order of severity. So the easiest ones are supplements and herbal therapy. Then you get to hospitalizations, surgeries, medications, and it goes on from there. Here's the thing. Supplements and herbal therapy, they're an intervention because you're adding something to the body. But when you're doing that, you still have a 70 to 90% chance of getting back to 100%. When we start looking at hospitals and surgeries, there we're starting to look at correcting things or taking things out. So you still have about a 50% chance of getting back to a normal life and normal usage of all your organs. But when we start jumping into medications, the goals of medications is not to heal you, it's to stop a function in your body, to change how your body's reacting. So the minute we move to medications, we have a 0% chance of getting back to normal. Medications, they never say, take this medication for 1 week and you'll be better and everything's going to be fine. No, they go, take this medication for the rest of your life. So when we start looking at medications, we're looking at a totally different game. So for the last 3 years, I had been using acupuncture. I'd been using Qigong. These 2 were lifestyle changes. And I had been using herbal therapy. And that's, a low-level intervention where I'm adding herbs in to strengthen key organs that have gone out of balance and were getting weak. Here's the key thing in Chinese medicine. If you've got the right diagnosis, what you do always improves symptoms. And I remember this when I was in my internship. I was working with one of my Chinese doctors, and somebody had said something and it was inappropriate. And so the doctor and I were walking to my patient's room, and he turned and he said to me, well, we'll see. Because if they're right, then the patient will improve. And I kept that for since ever since I've been practicing. Now, the key thing is if you improve, then I know the diagnosis is right. You can talk all you want about theory and what you think it should be, but the only thing that's right is if the patient improves. For me, with Chinese medicine, my situation was that I knew this intermittent pain was correlated, strongly correlated to foods and stress. The problem was I was having a difficult time identifying what food was a culprit, and it was because things were misleading. I was thinking that I was eating foods, and it turned out I was eating foods that I was sensitive to, and that was causing bloating and discomfort all by itself. And then I was also eating my favorite treat, which is chocolate covered salted caramels. And that started igniting the pain right away. And it kind of misled me. I thought the pain was being ignited due to sugar and not due to fats. And when I'm in a hurry, fast food's always my favorite. So I started noticing that I would flare up with fast foods. And being that I was doing fats and sodas, I really couldn't tell if it was fats or sugars that were causing the issue. In Chinese medicine, the flavor of sweet is associated with the spleen. Fats are associated with the liver and gallbladder. For me, I had a lot of spleen signs and I had a lot of liver and gallbladder signs, and I kind of thought I had more spleen signs than I did gallbladder signs. And that's where the whole thing was getting confusing. So there's more than one answer out there. There's a lot of different medicines out there. And there's naturopaths, there's chiropractors, there's acupuncturists, herbalists, there's gynecologists, there's cardiologists, there's all sorts of Western doctors. There are a lot of different answers out there. Here's how you know that you need to get more information. You need to get more information if what used to work is not enough. It's not that it's not working, it's probably still working, but it's just not enough and your symptoms are progressing. For me, I knew that the stress had been just progressing over the last 3 years, and you can see the last year was just a horrendous nightmare. So my stress levels were increasing, and I needed to get more information to help me truly focus on if it was a spleen or the gallbladder. And so I picked 3 sources. Chinese medicine, because that's what I do, and then I chose Western medicine, and my last one was food sensitivity. So Chinese medicine is pretty neat because it's been around for 5,000 years, and it treats almost anything. So whatever happens, you can treat it in Chinese medicine. The problem is that as things progress, the diagnosis can become more and more complicated. You suddenly are in more and more shades of gray. And that's where I was, as I was in these shades of gray. So when I'm in shades of gray, I always turn to Western medicine. And I use Western medicine test results a lot in clinic on my really complicated cases. And these are historically cases where I'm waffling between 2 diagnoses. There just isn't enough to turn me one way or the other. And what I've found is I can review Western medical tests, and the results have always pointed me in a specific direction. Now, being that I'm from a Chinese medical perspective, I look at them a little bit differently than Western professionals, and that's just because I'm looking at them through the eyes of a Chinese medical provider. And the last thing I picked on was food sensitivity. Now, intermittent stomach pain was a digestive issue, and food sensitivities have become a huge issue in our society. When I see things like food protein induced enterocolitis, FPIES, something that didn't exist 10 years ago, or the increase in IBS in adolescents and that's becoming common, you start to realize that food and food sensitivities are a big player in digestive issues. And then sometimes time is on your side, but sometimes it's not. And I had probably waited a little bit too long to really focus on my stomach pain. And this time time wasn't on my side, and I broke. I was just overwhelmed, and one night I broke. And what happened was I ended up again in this excruciating pain, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. It was a level 10. I had my husband take me to the emergency room. So if we looked at chronic diseases can be managed, I have moved from interventions of supplements and herbal therapies to hospitalizations, and I've made a huge change from a 70 to 90% ability to reverse and correct this to now a 50% ability to reverse and correct this. The neat thing is that I got all the Western medical test results I needed to help me make the decisions. And here's the thing. The results were not conclusive, but they were directional. And they were 75% positive that I had gallstones. Their best conclusion was that it was a gallstone attack. The tests were great because it indicated that I didn't have an inflamed pancreas or gallbladder. So that in and of itself made this an issue where I could elect when I was going to get surgery, if I was going to get surgery. And the blood work came back good. The white blood count was in normal range, again supporting no infection. So this becomes not a critical issue. And the liver enzyme tests were normal. My EKG was normal. The ultrasound showed 3 small gallstones, and the largest was a 0.5 centimeter, so they weren't even very big. And palpation of the gallbladder indicated that it was a gallbladder issue. So the test results were great, and now I had a couple options here. I could do surgery, or I could try, which now for sure we're more at the 0% because if I do surgery, they're removing the gallbladder, right? And so never getting back to normal there. I could do the surgery, or I could try and manage it with lifestyle and intervention. Those were my 2 options. So it's either go to 0 or use what I've been using to try and manage it, which was pretty scary because so far I haven't been very successful. And here it is. So this was a point where I had to put up or shut up. And for me, this was pretty critical because I've known that I've had to manage my food and what I was eating. I've known that for over 10 years, and I've completely ignored it. So here's what I decided. I implemented everything. I continued using all the supplements that have been identified in the previous videos, and I incorporated food choices that were specific to eliminating fats and supporting the liver. Now, previously in the previous videos, the food choices had been focused on supporting the stomach and spleen because I thought I had more spleen signs. This time I completely changed it and made the food choices focus totally on the liver and the gallbladder. I eliminated all the foods that came up positive on the food sensitivity test. You know what was neat about that is chocolate wasn't one of them. And then I eliminated all fats. That was brutal. And I used the Western medical test results to give me direction on my Chinese medical diagnosis, and I focused on the liver and gallbladder. From there, I implemented Chinese herbal medicine based on my specific diagnosis for gallstones. And let me tell you, In Chinese medicine, there's not just one diagnosis for anything. Everything has to have at least 5 diagnoses, if not 12 or more. And for gallstones, there's quite a few different ways you could diagnose that. From a Western perspective, my situation wasn't typical. The pain was in the wrong location. The pain was only partially associated with food, and stress also played a role in the pain. The pain lasted for a really long time, between 12 to 18 hours, and the pain was excruciating. So after implementing all of this, what were the results? Well, it's been a week, and I ended up in ER probably on day 30 of the food challenge. Yay, what a smashing end to the 30-day challenge. And the results were the formula, my pain went away. So this Chinese herbal formula eliminated the pain. And what that means from a Chinese medical perspective is that I had the right diagnosis. Nice. The next thing that happened was this insane severe bloating went away. Now, within the last week, right before I went to ER, I gained 5 pounds in bloating. So gallstones are known to cause a lot of bloating, but also the foods that I was sensitive to, that was causing a lot of upset and bloating. What this also meant is I had to avoid all fake foods. And we know a fake food because it comes in a bag. And for the first week, I ate 100% vegan, 100% vegan. And actually, I didn't even like my vegetables cooked. So I did 100% vegan with raw vegetables. And then I added in foods that were specifically for the liver. And so daily, I was doing a 1/4 cup of lime juice and a 1/4 cup of vinegar, which sounds completely disgusting, right? Well, here's the deal. Is you can make a Japanese marinade. And since I was doing so many vegetables, what better thing to marry with vegetables but a Japanese marinade? So that's what I did. Limes, vinegar, tamari, sugar, cilantro, whatever you want. To get the base, you can put anything else you want into it. And I just poured it over my vegetables. After a week, my gallbladder situation had improved enough that I could add in limited fats such as beef, avocados, some mayo, who would have guessed? But I still can't do fake foods, so that looks like that might be for a really long time. And the other thing that happened was that, oh, in a week, this was pretty amazing. I lost 10 pounds in 2 inches. So just getting rid of the bloating, lost 10 pounds in 2 inches. Getting rid of the foods that I was sensitive to that seemed to be causing a ton of water retention, 10 pounds, 7 inches. Amazing. Like that. And here's my learnings. I did need information from all 3 groups. I needed information from Chinese medicine. I needed information on food sensitivities. And because everything had gotten so complicated, this had been chronic for so long and was getting so severe, I needed feedback from Western medicine. The food sensitivity test was great. I was really surprised. I thought it was so much more effective than what I thought it was going to give me. It identified key nutritional deficiencies, and you saw that when I started taking those nutrients, my anxiety changed, my sleep patterns improved. That was, in and of itself, that would have made the food sensitivity test 100% worth it. But what it really did is it identified key foods that could have been triggering my stomach pain and foods that were causing bloating and discomfort. I would never have figured these out on my own. Peanuts, I would never have figured that out on my own. And I had been eating so many of these foods that I was sensitive to that I was in this constant state of low-level inflammation. So I really couldn't have told you which foods I was sensitive to. This test really helped me zero in, identify them. I could quickly and easily eliminate them. And it made a huge difference. It also made a huge difference in my taste buds. I can't believe I think tofu is good right now. Who thinks that? So the Western medical tests were critical to giving me directional information so that I could improve my Chinese medical diagnosis. And the Chinese medicine was huge. It provided a solution to strengthen the gallbladder and eliminate the pain. And that's really what I was going for, was eliminating the pain. It reduced my bloating and it improved my overall attitude and well-being. So I'm not out of the woods yet. This, of course, is not a quick fix. To get to the point where your doctor's saying, hey, we could remove an organ or you could do these massive lifestyle changes. To get to that point, to repair that organ is not a quick fix. And I still have to make a decision on if I'm going to do surgery. Right now, my surgery date is 2 weeks out. So here's some of the things that I've been looking at. The success rate on this surgery is it's a really common surgery, high success rate. This is one of those surgeries that they're like, you can blindfold me and I'll be able to do this. So I'm okay with doing the surgery. I'm going to jump down here to the potential of, here's one of my concerns that I asked my doctor about is, well, you can't tell this in all these tests that you're running. You can't tell if my gallbladder is diseased. What's the potential of my gallbladder being diseased? And my doctor says that's low, that's pretty uncommon. And the other thing that I thought was pretty neat is that because my medical test came back so positive, I showed no inflammation, showed no serious issue at the time. This surgery is an elective surgery, which means I can schedule it. I don't have to have it done right now. It's still a medical necessity, but I don't have to have it done right now. And then here's the one that I left for last. One of the things that I've noticed with my clients in the office is the after effects of gallbladder surgery. Removing the gallbladder, from what I can tell, and even in myself going through this whole process here, the gallbladder is kind of like the canary in the coal mine. It seems to be the early warning system when everything's getting ready to fail. So, you've ignored everything and now the gallbladder is going off the rails, telling you that there's a huge problem here and you better address it. So what I found with people who've removed the gallbladder, though, is they're still doing all the things that are causing all that inflammation, which is causing a lot of other things within their system. But now they don't have that canary giving them a warning that this is happening, and they don't have that canary. So what, for me, that canary is I can change things that I'm doing. I can change my foods. I can change my herbs. I can make all these changes. And my canary, then my gallbladder, is either going to calm down or it's going to progress. So if I remove that, there's no way that I am really able to tell if I'm doing the right thing for me. And these lifestyle changes are just that. They're lifestyle changes. And here's the thing, can I stick to it? The one thing that I know about food is that it is an addiction. Look around us. What do people use food for? They use food to fill themselves up, to make them feel better. They use food to alter moods. Food is about managing our emotions. So food is an addiction. And my husband and I, we are foodies. This is our stress relief. We would go out to great restaurants, try best foods and new foods, different foods from different countries. All of that was amazing. And right now I can't do any of that. And it doesn't look like I'm really ever able to do this again. So it's an addiction, and what happens if I fall off the wagon? Is my gallbladder going to explode on me? So everything that I'm doing now is a lifestyle change, and you know, the best I can do is try. So I have this whole process in place right now, and I have 2 weeks until surgery. But I think by the end of this first week, I should know if what I'm doing is going to be successful enough that I can continue on without doing surgery. Now, granted, we've got to realize that this has progressed, and it's in a very, very serious place right now because I have the option of surgery to fix this. So I only have another week to see. Well, I don't really have another week because it's an elective. I could change the date. I can. So here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to look for. In the next week, I want to see that I have no pain. I also get pressure on the right-hand side. I want that pressure to go away. I want to be able to eat a bigger variety of foods, which is happening. I'm able to eat more and more foods. And I would like to be able to reduce some of the supplements, but that's not really necessary. And then I'm going to have to determine when I can stop the herbal formula. So the big three on if I think I'm going to be able to manage this with lifestyle and low-level interventions of supplements and herbs is no pain, the pressure on my right side goes away, and I'm able to eat a bigger variety of foods. So that is what has happened. The 30-day challenge is over. I ended up in the ER at the end of the challenge. Yay! And now, but what that ER visit did is it gave me the last piece of information that I needed in order to make valid decisions for myself from a Chinese medical perspective. So from here on out, I am going to spend the next week testing out and seeing if I can be successful with these lifestyle changes. And from there, I'll make a decision if I will do this elective surgery in 2 weeks. If I'm successful, I'll probably put it off and keep it in my back pocket, just in case things go sideways again. So even though my 30-day challenge is over, what I think I will do is I'll do a couple more videos of what the follow-up is on this and where I end up. Do I go in for surgery? Is this successful? We'll do a wait and see approach. Yet, this gives you an idea of what it takes to treat something that's serious and that has moved beyond a normal everyday thing and has started moving into the Western medical hospitalizations and surgeries and medication zone. Okay, thanks again for coming out and visiting me on my 30-day challenge. Until next time, I'll catch you on the other side.